Good day. It's Peter Temple on August the 5th, a Tuesday, 2025, and this is an update of the calendar that I typically do. This one hasn't changed that much. It's changed in terms of what I've put on the screen because some of the markers have changed around a day or two, that sort of thing. But overall, I've been looking at the 8th, August the 8th, as a major turning point here, and we're so close. All of the comms and information that I'm getting is telling me that it's just a matter of kind of picking a day, that we are very close to the RV taking off. But I've always said that we have to get the nuclear standoff done, which is right here, these 3 days. Here we are. I'm going to go through this in more detail, but here we are today on the 5th, and we're in this final scare event that is taking off. I think it's based on Bay of Pigs. And then we have the Lionsgate option here. This is the Lionsgate portal, which is a major date, 88, August 8, and you can remember 88 from Back to the Future, the movie, and this is an important date. And so we are kind of rolling ahead to EBS, which could be as early as the 11th of August or maybe on the 16th. I'm not sure how they're going to play this, but let me take you through this in more detail. We're sitting here on August the 5th today. Here's the end of July. These are all Julian calendar Gregorian calendar dates along the top here. And that's the calendar that we're using on a daily basis. It's the one you're used to. Now, these dates at the bottom here, these red ones, are the Julian calendar dates. They're the ones the military uses, and they're also the ones that the calendar that was in place at the top of the Roman Empire when Jesus was born. And so you have to use those dates if you're talking about Jesus, for example. And we are basically moving from the Gregorian calendar over to the Julian calendar, at least the dates, and it will also become a lunar calendar, which means that we will end up, I don't know exactly when they're going to switch this, but I think it's very soon. Those dates will end up giving us 13 months of 28 days, with a couple of extra days in to make it all work on a regular annual basis. So it's going to be interesting. That's going to be a lunar calendar. It's all based on lunar cycles, and we have to wait for that. So we've got a bunch of calendars in the works here. It makes things a little more difficult, but try and stay with me on this, and I'll take you through it. 24th of July on the Julian calendar was 7/11, and we're told, we've seen this logo around all over the place, we are told that that is Jesus' birthday. It is also a symbol for the Bible, because we originally had 777 books in the Bible, and they only gave us 66. I'm going back way back, the original Bible, and they pared it down with James the First in the early 1600s to be a Masonic calendar, or a Masonic Bible rather, and they only gave us 66 books. The difference between the 777 minus the 66 books is 711 books. So there's a whole bunch of books we're going to get in the new Bible, which is going to give us the history of the world. So that's what this had to do with. There was a new moon there. Not that much happened that day, but it was next to the Gregorian date of the 25th, which Trump called Christmas in July. And it is more of a retail basis than anything, sort of a mid-year notation in terms of the actual date. And this was on the Gregorian calendar, but there's also a Christmas in July on the Julian calendar, which is 7/25 down here, July 25, because there's a difference of 13 days between the Julian calendar and the Gregorian. So we're talking about on August the 7th, here we are today, so in 2 days, there's a Christmas in July on the Julian calendar, and that may be significant, okay, in terms of the RV, if everything happens very quickly. So kind of keep that in mind. Those are the two calendars 13 days apart, and we are going back to the Julian calendar dates themselves. The 25th here, Christmas in July, was the start of Trump going to to Scotland. He was there for 5 days. That's what this signifies. And these 5 sort of brownish orange kind of days in here that I've blocked off. When he came back, or supposedly when he came back, the world would have changed. That's what he said. That's what he said. The world will have changed when I return from my trip. It hasn't sort of significantly that you can see, but the day that he came back, well, the day after the day that he came back, because he came back on the 29th, on the 30th, we had the Federal Reserve Conference and a major, usual monthly rate change in the interest rates. They kept it the same, but we also, within about 24 hours, we had the meeting of the minds with Trump meeting Powell. And we had also a turn in the market the next morning. So the market has already started to the downside. So this was a significant day. It means that the Federal Reserve is gone. And actually, I watched this conference that he did live, Powell, and he was CGI, which means he's gone. And so is the Federal Reserve. We know that the Federal Reserve was moved into the Treasury a long time ago. And that's also significant in terms of the Julian calendar, because the military always does things way ahead of time. And we're watching a movie right now. The movie is pretty well all fake, but the things that are happening have happened before. And so this movie's all about waking up the public. I think they've had some delays, and that's been part of the problem. We've been waiting for this scare event for here, which is these 3 red boxes based on the Bay of Pigs, which was 3 days in 1961, which relates to JFK and the world in those days. So the world did change, because that was really a signifier for the Federal Reserve leaving the building. And so we have the new QFS, the new quantum financial system, in place. So keep that in mind. It happened on the 17th, on a Julian calendar 17th, and it happened before the end of July on the Gregorian. They told us that Diana, they told us somewhere around in here that in 9 days, Diana was supposed to explain everything. Well, I don't know what happened to that, but this would have been New Year's Eve based on Christmas in July. So you've got the 25th and you've got the 31st, and then we moved into August. So nothing really happened there, which now leads me to believe that we might be talking about Christmas in July on the Julian calendar. And this down here would be New Year's Eve on the Julian calendar, which would be the 31st of July. And that you do the mirror of that, and it's 13, which is God's number. So it's kind of significant there. So let's get back to the beginning of August. Here was August the 1st on the Gregorian calendar. That's our normal calendar, so nothing weird there. We were told today in the Restored Republic that the RV actually started on the 4th. I don't know how accurate that is, but I believe it is in play and working. But of course, there's a lot of things to go through. We're waiting for the T4B event, which would be everybody that is awake on the internet. Those are the people that will then get to do their revaluation of currencies, and then at that revaluation meeting, they will also be able to see their wallets. I think their wallets will be open for them, and all the other restitution payments and their strawman payments and everything should be in it. So that would be for the humanitarian group, and there are a lot of those. So they have to get through those, and those will happen before we get into EBS. So we have kind of 2 RVs. Most of the people that are awake and patriots are aware of the revaluation of currencies. The normies, which will after EBS, they will get their payments, don't or aren't as aware. Some of them may be, but there will be the ability for them also to turn in their currencies in a revaluation. But at the end of EBS, then the quantum financial system will be live, and they will get another set of emails. So I'm talking about up here the humanitarian effort. So going back to today, scare event looks like it's ramping up. We have how many different countries involved? We have Israel and Iran, and we have got England has now entered, and we've got Russia, and we have got Ukraine, and we have got China that is going to take over Taiwan. They just announced that. So there's all of these wars, and it's supposed to be a very significant 3-day nuclear standoff. So that's already started with Trump, I think it was yesterday or the day before, positioning a couple of nuclear submarines in a spot that should deter Russia. And he has also said on the 29th over here, we're looking at the 8th, but he said, Trump said on the 29th that he was giving Russia 10 days, a deadline for Russia to end the war with Ukraine. And that takes us to the 8th. Now note that Gassara has to have all wars stop. There can be no wars on Earth for this to come into play, for it to be announced. And I think that this is probably the date that that's going to happen. There are also, on the Lionsgate date, there are a lot of spiritual ascension influences there, and I have heard, with a lot of the information that I have been researching, that we may have some starseeds that get back their memories on that day. That's how significant this might be, or over the weekend. It will be slow, of course, but the 88 day is, if you remember, we had to go 88 miles an hour in Back to the Future, and so that's a very important date. We might get a Trump tweet that night. Trump has also reinforced the idea today that he is leaving very soon, leaving this movie. So that could happen sometime in here as well. So looking at this, one of the things that is significant here, I talked about the market on the 30th, but today, and I told you that the market had turned. We're at the point now where I am expecting the market probably to head down again tomorrow. Let's go look at the S&P 500. This is a 1-hour chart. And we're right at the top of the market here. This is what we call a triple zigzag, the way I've got it labeled, and it's a corrective wave. And it's if I've got this right, these are difficult things to get right, believe me, because the waves are not what you expect. They're all corrective waves. But if I am right, this should head down to a new low. Because these things, when you get a triple zigzag, when it plays out to the very top, then it has to go to a new low, and then we're going to get another wave to the upside. But I've given you the 62% retrace level, which would be around 54.44 or 54.50, let's say. And right now we're sitting up at about 6300, so that's about $1,000 drop. If it goes all the way down, this is going to be a couple of $1,000s for the S&P 500, and it'll freak everybody out. But that's usually what happens in the final wave to the downside before you get a high. So this is all working out. This is our wave down that we got the end of last week, 3 days. It started heading down. And this, you always need a first wave and then a second wave before you get the great big third wave to the downside. So we're set up tonight for that third wave coming down. We've done an A wave up, we've got a little B wave down, and we're waiting tonight to tag, probably overnight, the previous high, yesterday's high, which would be an overnight high. And then once we do that, which I think will be tomorrow morning, then we should be ready to head down. And again, it could come down just 1,000 points, or it could come down a couple of thousand points. But that's the S&P 500. And the market is going to do that right across the board. All the indices are absolutely going to follow whatever the S&P 500 does. So this is significant because it says to me the RV is in play. And I think that's going to, and because there's a lot of people in the T4B group, and those people will have an impact on the market. Also, it will be the revaluation of all of the currencies on Earth that are happening, and that will have a significant influence on the US dollar and that chart, which has to go to the downside still. So moves in the opposite direction from here. So going to be an interesting week. I think this is boom week. Let's get back to the calendar. So we talked about that here tomorrow, and it could be in conjunction with the Epstein list coming out, of course. It also could be some sort of announcement on the 2020 election. could get this thing moving to the downside. War does typically not move the market, so I'm not expecting the war to have an influence on the market. But we know that the Statue of Liberty and all the 34 satanic buildings have to be taken out. So we need the threat of a war to have that happen. These are all over the world, but primarily in the U.S. There's some in France, there's some in England, and they all have to be taken out, destroyed. All right. Then we get into the 7th here. So that's the 6th, that's tomorrow. And then we have the 7th, which could be Obama somewhere in here. Obama could also get arrested in here, and that would be a significant drop in the market. So anything happening to Trump would also move the market. And we have on the 7th, it's Christmas in July, based on the Julian calendar. Okay, so that could be a significant thing, and maybe that's what Trump was talking about, because typically, quite often, let's say, we're talking about the Julian calendar, and he's talking about it, and we're finally there. Then on the 8th, we've got 88. That's the Lionsgate portal. As I mentioned to you, it's got some spiritual influence in there, and also, what was I going to say? Also, it could be the wake-up call for some starseeds in terms of getting their memories back. And I'd mentioned to you that Trump had said that it's the deadline for Russia for this war with Ukraine. So that's important. We might get the Trump tweet and very possibly the announcement of Gassara publicly, and that would change a lot. Now, we have these 7 alerts, which are supposed to click in. And after the war, of course, we go to black. So I was always expecting that the RV would happen, once we go to black. And hey, that could be on Thursday. And then the military steps in and set up checkpoints. And that makes it safe for the humanitarians then to go to the redemption centers. In terms of, events and everything, which we have been taught are the things to listen to. I don't listen to any of the RV people that are talking about, it's going to be tomorrow, it's going to be tomorrow, and this is every day they come up with, it's going to be tomorrow. It has to be based on events, and I think we have to be safe for people to go to the redemption centers, and that means the military has to be there. Now, we could get EBS as soon as the 11th, and that would mean they'd have to put those 7 alerts, which we're expecting, in play from about the 8th through to the 11th. And they could do that, or they could extend them over the 7 days that are here, because you count these days from the 9th, starting on the 9th, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's possible we get EBS starting on the night of the 15th into the 16th. That's the other one. And then there is the 11th, very possibly. And there's a note here that in the south of the U.S., schools go back to school on the 11th of August. And so they might want to truncate that, because we are hearing that kids are not really going to go back to school this year. We're going to have homeschooling for the next couple of years. But if it starts on this date, it should start at midnight on the 10th. And the 10th also is significant regarding the Mickey Mouse clock, because we know that the hands are on the sort of 210s on that. So that's an interesting thing happening. And we have got a thing happening with 4-10-20, which this would take us to the 20th if it happened here. If we had the EBS, 10 days takes us to the 20th. 4-10-20 stands for DJT. Those are the gematria numbers, or actually they're just the numbers of the letter in the alphabet. 4-10-20. So that's interesting. There are a lot of dates in here that are very possibly significant, but it also makes it very difficult to figure out how they're going to play this out. The 13th of August ends up being New Year's Eve on the Julian calendar, and that might be significant for a very big move. And lo and behold, on the 14th, we have this graphic coming into play again. So you go over and you look at this graphic on the big screen, and this is the one with 14 days in it, ending up on the 14th with the big heart here. So it begins with the 3 big mountains at the beginning. And so that might be in play for this month. I considered it about 2 months ago, but it could be in play because there's the 14th. And it's also August the 1st on the Julian calendar. Again, a significant day. And that might lead into EBS on the 15th, the night of the 15th. So I don't know how they're going to play this out, but we're very close to this thing all coming together and having the big turnover right in front of our eyes. This, I think, is significant. Just to summarize the 3 days here, we should see these buildings taken out this week. I think this is boom week. We've got a lot of options here for things that could spark the market heading down. This ends up being the 7th, ends up being Christmas in July. Lionsgate on the 8th. And then Junior appears on the 9th, we are told. We have that documentary coming out on the 9th, which I think is a calm. It's also a full moon, which is a very mystical, significant, and volatile time. So that's interesting that ends up being here, and also with Lionsgate. So that's on the 9th. And then it's possible we go into EBS on the emergency broadcast system on the 11th. So there's a lot happening. I don't know the actual date when this is all going to come to fruition, but boy, it's got to be one of these days in here because it looks like everything's happening very quickly. The 88 signifies speed, and they always said it would happen very rapidly once we get sort of Obama and some things happening in a row. The dominoes should be falling, and they already are. So get ready, folks. I think this is it. Everything I'm saying is pointing to these couple of weeks. And then, of course, we're going to be locked down for most of the 10 days when we get the 10-day video playback. So that's all happening. And we'll just have to see how it plays out. But watch for some of these markers during this week and into next week, and we'll see how it all plays out.